Did you know your favorite song might be about someone who died tragically? Have you ever watched a movie without realizing it was inspired by a real-life loss? Celebrity deaths have shaped our culture in ways we rarely recognize. Number 13, John Lennon, The Day the Music Died. Can you imagine a world without Imagine? On December 8, 1980, Mark David Chapman forever changed music history when he shot and killed John Lennon outside his New York apartment building. The former Beatles' death at just 40 years old sent shockwaves through the world and inspired countless tributes across all artistic mediums. Elton John, who had been close friends with Lennon, released Empty Garden, Hey Hey Johnny in 1982 as a heartfelt tribute. The song's metaphor of a garden without its caretaker perfectly captured the sense of abandonment felt by fans worldwide. Can't you come out to play? Elton pleads in the chorus, expressing the collective grief of millions who couldn't believe Lennon was gone. Lennon's death also inspired the 2007 film Chapter 27, starring Jared Leto as Chapman. The movie's title references J.D. Salinger's novel The Catcher in the Rye, which Chapman was obsessed with and carried during the murder. Many books have explored Lennon's final days, including The Last Days of John Lennon by James Patterson, which examines the intersection between celebrity and obsession that led to the tragedy. Yoko Ono, Lennon's widow, later created the Strawberry Fields Memorial in Central Park, transforming grief into a place of peace directly across from where her husband was killed. The memorial became another form of artistic expression, featuring a mosaic with the word Imagine at its center. Number 12, Diana, the people's princess who never stopped inspiring. Have you forgotten where you were when you heard Princess Diana had died? On August 31, 1997, Diana's car crashed in Paris's Pont de l'Alma tunnel while trying to escape paparazzi, killing her at just 36 years old. The global outpouring of grief was unprecedented, with over 2.5 billion people watching her funeral worldwide. Elton John reworked his 1973 song Candle in the Wind, originally written about Marilyn Monroe, with new lyrics for Diana. Beginning with Goodbye England's Rose, the tribute became the second best-selling physical single of all time. Elton performed it just once at Diana's funeral before retiring it from his repertoire out of respect. Diana's story has inspired numerous films and documentaries, including the controversial 2013 biopic Diana, starring Naomi Watts, and the more recent Netflix series The Crown, which dedicated substantial storylines to her life and death. Books about Diana number in the hundreds, from Andrew Morton's explosive Diana, Her True Story, to Tina Brown's The Diana Chronicles. The princess's tragic death also inspired legislative change, with California passing anti-paparazzi laws in her memory. Her legacy continues through her sons, Princes William and Harry, who have spoken openly about the impact of their mother's death on their mental health, sparking conversations about grief processing around the world. Number 11, Kurt Cobain, the voice of generation, the 10th silence too soon. Did you know Kurt Cobain died at the same age as Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, and Jim Morrison? When the Nirvana frontman died by suicide on April 5, 1994, at age 27, the grunge generation lost its reluctant spokesman. Cobain's death certificate wasn't discovered until 3 days after his suicide, amplifying the shock and confusion among fans worldwide. Countless songs have been written about Cobain, from bandmate Dave Grohl's Foo Fighters debut, widely interpreted as addressing his complicated feelings about Cobain's death, to Sleeps with Angels by Neil Young. Cobain had quoted Young's lyric, "It's better to burn out than to fade away," in his suicide note, prompting Young to dedicate an entire album exploring themes of self-destruction and immortality. Gus Van Sant's 2005 film Last Days presents a fictionalized account of Cobain's final hours through the character of Blake, a reclusive musician struggling with fame and addiction. Documentaries like Kurt and Courtney and Montage of Heck have attempted to separate myth from reality, examining the complex factors that contributed to his death. Books about Cobain fill entire shelves, from Charles R. Cross's definitive biography, Heavier Than Heaven, to his widow Courtney Love's controversial release of Cobain's journals. Each work grapples with the fundamental question of how someone so talented could feel so tortured, and how fame can become a prison rather than a privilege. Number 10. Heath Ledger, a performance that outlived him. What happens when your greatest role becomes your last? When Heath Ledger died from an accidental prescription drug overdose on January 22, 2008, he had just completed filming his iconic role as the Joker in The Dark Knight. His death at 28 cast a shadow over what would become his most celebrated performance, earning him a posthumous Oscar for Best Supporting Actor. While no major songs were written specifically about Ledger, his death profoundly influenced popular culture. Conspiracy theories emerged claiming the psychological toll of portraying the Joker contributed to his death, despite family statements that Ledger had thoroughly enjoyed the role. This narrative persisted so strongly that when Jared Leto later took on the Joker character, media frequently referenced the supposed curse of the role. The 2012 documentary I Am Heath Ledger used home footage shot by the actor himself to create an intimate portrait of the man behind the performances. Several books have examined his life and career, including Heath, A Family's Tale by his father Kim Ledger, which attempts to reclaim his son's story from sensationalist narratives. Perhaps most movingly, director Terry Gilliam's film The Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus, which Ledger was filming when he died, was completed using Johnny Depp, Jude Law, and Colin Farrell to play different versions of Ledger's character. The film stands as a unique artistic response to unexpected loss, transforming tragedy into creative collaboration. Number 9. Amy Winehouse, the voice that couldn't be saved. How could someone so talented be so troubled? When Amy Winehouse joined the 27 Club on July 23, 2011, dying from alcohol poisoning in her London home, her death felt simultaneously shocking and inevitable. Her public struggles with addiction had been ruthlessly documented by tabloids, turning her personal demons into public entertainment. Lady Gaga's Dance in the Dark references Winehouse among other tragic figures like Marilyn Monroe and Princess Diana, while Green Day's Amy directly addresses her death with the lyrics, "May I have this last dance by chance if we should meet." Bruno Mars, who cited Winehouse as a major influence, paid tribute to her by naming his backing band the Hooligans after her album, Frank. The documentary Amy, directed by Asif Kapadia, won an Academy Award for its unflinching examination of how fame, addiction, and exploitation intersected in Winehouse's life. The film sparked controversy by portraying her father Mitch Winehouse and ex-husband Blake Fielder Civil as contributing to her downfall, highlighting how the people closest to celebrities can sometimes enable their worst behaviors. Books like Loving Amy, A Mother's Story by Janice Winehouse and Amy, My Daughter by Mitch Winehouse present competing narratives about who was responsible for protecting the vulnerable star. Her death prompted discussions about the ethics of celebrity coverage, with many media outlets reflecting on their role in treating her struggles as entertainment rather than signs of serious distress. Number 8. Marilyn Monroe, the death that launched 1,000 conspiracies. Was it suicide, accident, or murder? When Marilyn Monroe was found dead from a barbiturate overdose on August 4, 1962, her passing at 36 became one of Hollywood's most enduring mysteries. The ultimate sex symbol of her era, Monroe's death transformed her from celebrity to icon, freezing her in time as eternally beautiful and perpetually troubled. Elton John and Bernie Taupin's original Candle in the Wind memorialized Monroe with the opening line, "Goodbye Norma Jean," referencing her birth name. The 1973 hit became one of John's signature songs, expressing how Monroe was more than sexual, more than just our Marilyn Monroe. Countless other songs reference her, from Madonna's Material Girl, which deliberately evokes Monroe's "Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend" performance, to Nicki Minaj's Marilyn Monroe, exploring the parallels between modern fame and Monroe's struggles. Films about Monroe's death range from straightforward biopics to conspiracy-laden thrillers suggesting involvement from the Kennedy brothers or the CIA. Joyce Carol Oates' novel Blonde, recently adapted into a controversial Netflix film, presents a fictionalized account of Monroe's life that focuses on her psychological fragmentation under the weight of her public image. Norman Mailer's biography Marilyn and Gloria Steinem's feminist examination, Marilyn, Norma Jean, represent just two approaches among hundreds of books attempting to understand the woman behind the mythology. 6 decades after her death, Monroe continues to inspire artistic exploration of fame's double-edged sword, offering adoration while stripping away privacy and autonomy. Number 7. Tupac Shakur, the poet whose death became hip-hop mythology. Did he really die? When Tupac Shakur was fatally shot in Las Vegas on September 13, 1996, at age 25, his death became hip-hop's greatest unsolved mystery. The rapper's murder, coming just months before the similar killing of rival Notorious Big, created a mythology that continues to inspire conspiracy theories claiming Shakur faked his death and is living in Cuba or elsewhere. Numerous artists have referenced Tupac in their music, from Jay-Z's complicated reflections on his legacy to Eminem's Till I Collapse, which names him among rap's greatest figures. More directly, his friend and collaborator Outlaw's released One Day at a Time as a tribute, while J. Cole's Lost Ones samples Shakur's voice to connect with his artistic lineage. The 2017 biopic All Eyes on Me attempted to capture Shakur's complicated life story, while documentaries like Tupac, Resurrection use his own words from interviews to create a posthumous autobiography. Books examining his short life and outsized impact include The Killing of Tupac Shakur by Kathy Scott, which investigates the circumstances of his death, and Holler If You Hear Me by Michael Eric Dyson, which analyzes his cultural significance. What makes Shakur's death particularly influential is how it transformed him from controversial figure to prophet. Lines from songs like How Long Will They Mourn Me and I Ain't Mad at Cha seemed eerily prescient after his death, lending his entire catalog a posthumous weight that continues to influence artists across genres. Number 6. Whitney Houston, the voice that fell silent. How does someone with everything lose it all? When Whitney Houston was found dead in a hotel bathtub on February 11, 2012, at age 48, her passing represented both a personal tragedy and the loss of one of music's greatest talents. The official cause, drowning due to coronary artery disease and cocaine use, underscored how addiction had dimmed her once unparalleled vocal abilities. Beyoncé's I Was Here took on new meaning when she performed it as a tribute after Houston's death, while Houston's godchild Mariah Carey released One Sweet Day with Boys the Second Men, a song about meeting loved ones in heaven that many connected to Houston's passing. Sam Smith has cited Houston as a primary influence, with elements of their vocal style directly honoring her legacy. The 2015 Lifetime biopic Whitney, directed by Angela Bassett, focused on Houston's relationship with Bobby Brown, while the 2018 documentary Whitney presented a more comprehensive examination of her life, including allegations of childhood abuse that may have contributed to her later struggles. Kevin McDonald's film received praise for humanizing Houston rather than sensationalizing her downfall. Books like Whitney Houston, The Voice, the Music, the Inspiration by Narada Michael Walden explore her artistic genius, while Remembering Whitney by her mother Cissy Houston presents a more personal perspective on her daughter's rise and fall. Houston's death also inspired broader cultural conversations about how Black female artists navigate the music industry's pressures and expectations. Number 5. Robin Williams, the comedian who couldn't outrun his demons. Did the man who made everyone laugh die of sadness? When Robin Williams died by suicide on August 11, 2014, at age 63, the world struggled to reconcile his public persona with his private pain. The subsequent revelation that he had been suffering from Lewy body dementia added another layer of tragedy to his death. While few songs directly reference Williams, his death inspired profound artistic reflection. Comedians from Jim Carrey to Steve Martin shared personal tributes acknowledging how Williams had shaped their understanding of comedy's capacity for both hilarity and depth. His passing prompted industry-wide conversations about depression among comedians, with many performers speaking openly about their own mental health struggles in response. The 2018 documentary Robin Williams, Come Inside My Mind, uses intimate interviews and previously unreleased footage to examine Williams' creative process and internal struggles. The biography Robin by Dave Itzkoff presents a comprehensive account of Williams' life, career, and death, highlighting how his frenetic comedic style often masked deeper emotional currents. Perhaps most significantly, Williams' death transformed public understanding of depression as potentially fatal rather than merely emotional. His widow Susan Schneider Williams has become an advocate for brain disease research, penning the essay The Terrorist Inside My Husband's Brain about Lewy body dementia, which has educated millions about this often misdiagnosed condition. Number 4. David Bowie, the starman's final transformation. Did he plan his own artistic exit? When David Bowie died from liver cancer on January 10, 2016, just 2 days after his 69th birthday and the release of his final album Black Star, fans realized the entire project had been conceived as his artistic farewell. The album, with lyrics about mortality and themes of transformation, represented perhaps the most deliberate artistic response to impending death in popular music history. LCD Soundsystem's song Black Screen reflects on frontman James Murphy's relationship with Bowie, while Lorde described her meeting with Bowie as like meeting the Wizard of Oz before performing a tribute at the Brit Awards. Countless artists across genres acknowledged Bowie's influence on their work, from Lady Gaga's Grammy tribute performance to Arcade Fire's Street Parade in New Orleans celebrating his life. The documentary David Bowie, The Last 5 Years examines how Bowie continued creating while knowing he was dying, transforming his mortality into art through his final albums and the musical Lazarus. Books like On Bowie by Rob Sheffield explore how Bowie's death represented the completion of his lifelong artistic project of transformation and reinvention. What makes Bowie's death uniquely influential is how he incorporated it into his art, rather than having his art merely respond to his death. By treating his mortality as his final creative frontier, Bowie changed how we understand the relationship between art and death, suggesting that even our endings can be transformed into meaningful expression. Number 3. Prince, the Purple One's mysterious departure. How could someone so health-conscious die from prescription drugs? When Prince was found dead in an elevator at his Paisley Park home on April 21, 2016, at age 57, the cause, an accidental overdose of fentanyl, seemed incompatible with his clean-living image. The revelation that he had been secretly managing chronic pain challenged public perceptions of the fiercely private musician. D'Angelo's Bet Awards tribute performance of Sometimes It Snows in April captured the shock and grief of fans worldwide, while Stevie Wonder collaborated with Tori Kelly on Purple Rain as a musical farewell. More subtly, numerous artists incorporated purple lighting into their concert productions throughout 2016 as silent acknowledgement of Prince's influence. Spike Lee's film Girl 6 featured Prince's music prominently, gaining new poignancy after his death. Several documentaries have explored his musical genius, including Sign O' the Times, which showcases his exceptional live performances. Books like The Beautiful Ones, partially written by Prince himself before his death and completed posthumously, offer rare glimpses into his creative process and personal philosophy. Prince's death also highlighted the opioid crisis affecting Americans across all demographic groups. His status as a highly disciplined performer who nonetheless fell victim to prescription drug dependence helped destigmatize addiction as a medical issue rather than a moral failing, potentially saving lives through increased awareness of opioid dangers. Number 2. Michael Jackson, the king of pop's controversial legacy. Can you separate the art from the artist? When Michael Jackson died from propofol intoxication on June 25, 2009, at age 50, his death forced a cultural reckoning with how to remember deeply flawed icons. Despite serious allegations against him, Jackson's musical innovation and humanitarian work remain influential, creating ongoing tensions in popular culture about artistic legacy. Jackson's death inspired countless musical tributes, from Beyoncé performing Halo in his honor to Usher breaking down while singing Gone Too Soon at Jackson's memorial service. More subtly, his death transformed how dance-oriented pop music is created and performed, with artists from Bruno Mars to The Weeknd openly incorporating elements of Jackson's performance style into their work. The documentary This Is It presents footage from rehearsals for Jackson's planned comeback tour, offering a glimpse of what might have been. More controversially, the documentary Leaving Neverland centers on allegations against Jackson, creating competing narratives about his life and legacy. Books like Untouchable: The Strange Life and Tragic Death of Michael Jackson by Randall Sullivan attempt to navigate these contradictions. Jackson's death also changed how celebrity doctors are scrutinized, with his physician Conrad Murray ultimately convicted of involuntary manslaughter. This legal precedent has influenced how medical professionals approach treating high-profile patients who may use their wealth and influence to obtain dangerous treatments or medications. Number 1. Freddie Mercury. The show went on without him. How do you continue a band's legacy without its heart? When Queen frontman Freddie Mercury died from AIDS-related pneumonia on November 24, 1991, at age 45, his passing came just one day after he publicly acknowledged his illness. Mercury's death became a pivotal moment in AIDS awareness, transforming public perception of a disease still deeply stigmatized at the time. Elton John and Axl Rose performed Bohemian Rhapsody at the Freddie Mercury tribute concert in 1992, while George Michael's rendition of Somebody to Love at the same event highlighted Mercury's vocal brilliance. More recently, artists from Lady Gaga, who took her name from Queen's Radio Gaga, to Panic at the Disco, have cited Mercury as a primary influence on their theatrical performance styles. The 2018 biopic Bohemian Rhapsody became one of the highest-grossing music biopics ever, despite criticism for sanitizing aspects of Mercury's life and sexuality. Books exploring Mercury's impact include Somebody to Love: The Life, Death, and Legacy of Freddie Mercury by Matt Richards and Mark Langthorne, which connects his personal journey to the broader history of the AIDS crisis. Perhaps most significantly, Mercury's death inspired Queen guitarist Brian May and drummer Roger Taylor to become AIDS awareness advocates, with the Mercury Phoenix Trust raising millions for research and education. Mercury's passing also transformed how the music industry discussed sexuality, with his death forcing a more honest conversation about LGBTQ+ representation in rock music. Do we love celebrities more after they're gone? When famous figures die, their work often takes on new dimensions, transformed by our knowledge of their fates. From Lennon to Mercury, these 13 artists continue to shape our cultural landscape from beyond the grave, their deaths becoming as influential as their lives. The next time you hear a familiar song or watch a beloved movie, ask yourself, how might knowing about the tragedy behind it change what you see?